Welcome to Eriksholm Update. What do you think are the biggest challenges faced by audiologists and hearing care professionals all around the world today? Have you also considered how artificial intelligence could be used to solve or address some of these challenges? These are the types of questions that myself and scientists at the Eriksholm Research Centre are considering certainly on a daily basis. To my mind, persistent clinical challenges still remain some of the top problems that need to be resolved or solved for audiologists and hearing care professionals. An example of this would be speech in noise. This is a long-standing problem. It's still the #1 complaint from most hearing aid users around the world. Advances in artificial intelligence and specifically machine learning for audio applications is really making a great deal of headway into solving or at least making improvements in this. And this is certainly an area where we do a lot of research at Eriksholm. A second persistent clinical challenge, I would say, is actually quality and training. So decision support systems is actually a way that artificial intelligence can be utilized to help hearing care professionals and audiologists in order to make the correct decisions, in order to make decisions which are at least based on best practice. And again, this is an area where we're seeing a high level of research in many clinical researchers as well as scientists here in Eriksholm. Audiologists are having to make a number of trade-off decisions in the fitting of hearing aids. For example, in the amplification for loud versus soft sounds. And if you get this wrong, this can lead to discomfort and basically non-use of a hearing device. And being able to make better, more informed clinical decisions about how best to support your individual client, again, is an area where we see AI could be utilized using big data based on a large amount of clinical data that we can acquire through clinics and through partnerships with hospitals can help us provide better tools for supporting these kinds of decisions. And finally, in persistent clinical challenges, I would say expectation management still remains a big issue today. Simply put, there's no quick fix. Almost all end users need some kind of period of adaptation to a new device. And with more adaptable and more intuitive hearing devices with AI-driven sound processing strategies, we hope to be able to adapt to them in sort of real time, again, to try and help with this process of the end user getting used to their new audiology. Second major area for challenges would be for an audiologist to keep up with all of the technology innovation that we're seeing today. It's coming from all of the major hearing healthcare companies, including Oticon, where we're seeing more and more advanced noise suppression systems and helping algorithms appear in our hearing aids. And these need to be fitted with a knowledge base that can support the clinician. This needs to be incorporated in a more intelligent way into the fitting software. And again, that's an area where we see some many advantages of AI-driven software development. We're seeing an increased prevalence in hearing loss. Now, this is due to our aging populations, and this is leading to some quite significant operational pressures in both socialized health systems as well as private hearing care. Now, part of this is a result of staff shortages. There simply are not enough audiologists being trained globally to a sufficiently high standard in order to be able to fit hearing aids and provide hearing care according to the best practice guidelines that we believe is needed out there. Now, the consequence of this, of course, these staff shortages and the increased operational pressure is in a socialized health system, you see increased waiting time, so it can take a very long time before you actually get help and support with your hearing. And in the private sector, what that means is, if you're not able to take an appointment with one client, then somebody else may be able to, and therefore you're going to lose custom. Now, in both instances, inefficiencies in that whole process, in other words, people who have appointments who then don't show up for those appointments, is hugely problematic. Now, we can actually work with hearing health data, both from a public setting and from a private setting, to look at predictors of when people might turn up to appointments, might not turn up to appointments based on certain information that we can gather. And in addition to that, we can also look at how do we make those the fitting processes as efficient as possible again using the vast amounts of clinical data that is potentially available to us. And in that process, we hope to see an improvement in both efficiency and quality of audiology provided. So the final technical challenge that it's extremely important that we have to address, and that's ethical and privacy concerns. Fundamentally, we have to build tools and methods that are acceptable and will be used by end users and by hearing care professionals. So I definitely see a future where AI-based products and services support hearing care professionals, make data-driven decisions, save time, and help to improve the quality of their care. But to do so, we simply have to have access to, or some degree of access to, private clinical and or personal data. Now, in Europe and across the world, there are emerging and established regulation for these kinds of new products and services based on data and AI. And for absolutely that reason, we at Eriksholm are very, very interested in research around what we call privacy-preserving learning methods. So this is really trying to, at the absolute core, when we start training models, we try and build in privacy or an ability to do that learning without transferring data to us as a company, if that's at all possible. And then the other branch of research for us is what we call explainability. At the end of the day, a hearing care professional has to sign off on any kind of decision support system that we might give them. And they need to fully accept and understand why our models make the decisions that they make. And there is actually a whole branch of methods that can be utilized that can help create some transparency in these models to support the clinician to make that decision. So we're very, very interested in research that can enable us to create these kinds of future applications with privacy at the core and explainability as well. Have you ever considered using ear canal impressions as a diagnostic tool? Well, Paula López Diez, who is a scientist working at Eriksholm, is doing exactly that, and she's working with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of ear canal impressions. So welcome, Paula. Please tell us a little bit how you're using artificial intelligence to work with ear impression data.
So we actually have different sources of data that gives us information about the ear canal and the anatomy. The ear impressions is one of the key data types that we are using. And in the past, we used to extract like handcrafted features from these types of data to process like linear relationships between different data types. Right now, because we have artificial intelligence, we have AI, so we can actually have automated pipelines where we extract relevant features for very large amounts of complex data. And this actually allows us to uncover some of the patterns that we were not able to model before in the past.
Yeah. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the methods then that you're actually using?
Yes, of course. So for the ear impressions are 3D scans of actual like physical ear impressions of the ear, and they capture some variability of the ear canal, part of the anatomy. Right. So to be able to process them, we need some models that tells us more about them. We have actually some like classification and segmentation models. Segmentation models, for instance, help us find like relevant anatomical points within the ear impressions. We have classification models to maybe tell us, okay, which type of ear mold is this, like help us put those on different boxes. So kind of how to group different ear canals into different types, this kind of thing. Yes, given we have this denen labels, like given we know which type of ear canal it is, we can do that. But sometimes we don't have those labels, and what we do is that we are exploring unsupervised or self-supervised methods where we can try to model population level patterns from big amounts of data, and hopefully go towards more like foundational models where we can combine anatomical but also audiological features in bigger models. Right. So, I mean, what's the biggest challenges then that you're facing, and how are you sort of trying to overcome these? I think maybe the biggest challenge that we have sometimes is to ask the right questions and to actually keep the clinicians and the clinic in mind. Sometimes in this AI hype world, it's easy to do things just because we can. But we really try to keep translational research in mind, where we really have focus on what it's needed in the clinic and how can we make a better experience for the end user. So I think finding the right people and asking the right questions.
Focusing on the clinical pain as opposed to the engineering interest.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. With that in mind then, so what is kind of then the clinical or the technical challenges that you're trying to solve using these methods?
I would say our main aim, or the biggest goal that we have, is to really try to model how the ear anatomy affects how the hearing aid delivers sounds. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of variability between different people's ears, and we are trying to actually really model how this anatomy changes and how that affects the acoustic properties of the ear and how we deliver the sound. So we can build models that can help us personalize how we fit hearing aids. Yeah. So we can really adapt to the uniqueness of each user.
So it's not just the shape even, it's also then the material properties of the ear canal sitting behind.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And sometimes people can have similar ears, but different feelings, different comfort feelings, or different materials and distributions behind it. So we are really trying to answer the full question.
Yeah, so real individualized acoustics is the intention and the goal.
Yeah, that is the goal.
Super cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have you wondered about the impact of newborn hearing screening assessment since it was introduced more than 20 years ago? Have you also given any thought to, what are the current challenges that are faced by these programs? Now, Heidi Bliddal Borges, a scientist working at Eriksholm, is actually looking at newborn assessment and trying to deal with a particularly troubling situation that has occurred recently. Heidi, welcome. Please tell us more about this.
Yeah, so when hearing screening was introduced, it was really a game changer. Mm-hmm. Not just because you can discover if there's some problems early on, but mostly because you can actually intervene. And we know that getting the right help at the right time is critical for a baby's speech, language, and cognitive development. Yeah. And right now, how it happens is that first they go and do an automatic fast test. It's quite sensitive, and it's either an automatic ABR, auditory brainstem response test, or an autoacoustic emissions test. And this test will say if they need to be referred or not. Yep. And if that's the case, then they go for a more thorough assessment. We call it a diagnostic ABR. And that includes measuring EEG, so brain signals, while we introduce sounds at different levels. The goal is then to find the exact point where this auditory brainstem response stop being there. So right above that, that is the threshold.
So we get an estimate of the behavioral threshold effectively.
Yeah, and that sounds easy, but it's not, because EEG is a very noisy signal. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, far away from the threshold, we have large peaks and troughs. It's easier, but where we're actually interested, which is close to the threshold, these peaks and troughs, they get smaller. Yeah. And that's when you look at this place, a tiny piece of bump can be mistaken for a extra response. It could be noise. And there's other issues too. You can get to measure response from the opposite ear. So it's really hard, and it requires expert knowledge to be able to do this.
Very hard to interpret, needs expert knowledge and a lot of training to be able to do those kind of measurements.
Yeah. And that can be hard if you have a large hospital, region, or national health program to maintain high training and quality standards.
Yeah, particularly across and on a national level.
Yeah, so sometimes unfortunately it goes wrong, which of course has some pretty severe consequences for the babies where this happens. Yeah.
So then what specifically then are you working on?
Yeah, I'm working on a collaborative project between the National Health Services in the UK and the Interacoustic Research Unit, which is the DEMENT Diagnostics Research Group. Yeah. And our goal is to make AI models that support this procedure, make it more robust, maybe also faster, so we avoid some of these mistakes.
So how are you planning then to approach this in your particular project?
Yes, so there's one thing is that the EU AI Act states that our models need to be explainable and they need to be transparent. So what we want to do is that we really want our models to end up in the clinic and to be used. So of course we need to have that in mind. That the explainability part means that we can't just say that the ABR is there, it's not there. We need to give more reasoning that makes sense to the clinician of why we reached that conclusion. And the second part, it needs to be transparent. That means that we need to understand what is happening inside of our model. Most conventional models, they're right now just considered a big black box. But we need to make sure that it's reacting on relevant features and not just irrelevant noise.
Yeah, and by relevant features, these are features that clinicians with a lot of experience over the years will use sort of intuitively to say, is there an ABR there or is there not an ABR there? Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. It has to make sense and it has to be, also we make sure it's correct in that matter.
Yeah. Super. So then what's your biggest concern in the whole project?
Well, our approach here is that we really want people to use this and we want it to make sense what comes out of the model. So we are going in a direction at the moment to use large language models to take care of that part. And then some more conventional methods such as SHEP and LIME to look into this black box and figure out what is actually happening in there and is it doing what we want it to do and what we think is doing.
So the large language model is so the clinician can query the system to say, why did you choose this or why did you choose that? Is that the intention?
That's what we vision, that there would be some interaction between the clinician and this model,
And I guess you're going to need a ton of data to be able to work with this.
Yes, that is also a challenge, of course, that also why it's very nice we have a good collaboration partner, that we need a lot of data to train these sort of models,
Super. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching this Eriksholm update video, and we'll see you next time.